Posted by you/practical by 3266. My husband, 46M, and I, 48F, have a daughter, Ellie, 20F, who is currently on vacation from college. About 5 months ago, Ellie told us she had a new boyfriend, who I'll call Tom. This came rather out of the blue as Ellie hadn't mentioned seeing anyone or that she was dating, but both my husband and I were supportive and happy for her. However, Ellie was strangely secretive about the whole situation. Usually, she's an open book, especially with me, and always shares details of her personal life. On this occasion, she wouldn't show any pictures, and we knew next to nothing about Tom, other than that they met at a party through a mutual friend. Ellie has spent the past month of her vacation in her college town, and the plan was always for her to come back this weekend. Ellie asked if she could bring Tom with her for a few days of the trip as they were getting serious, and she wanted him to meet us. Although we mentioned that we knew barely anything about him, Ellie expressed that it would be a surprise and that we'd love him. Given that he's clearly an important part of our daughter's life, we agreed and said we'd look forward to spending the weekend together. Yesterday morning, we went to pick up Ellie and Tom from the airport to drive them to our place, and we were shocked. We knew instantly that Tom was much older than Ellie and certainly wasn't a college student. I was just in a state of surprise but didn't want to cause a scene, and told my husband to do the same. We drove home, but it was a frosty journey, which Ellie commented on. When we arrived, my husband point-blank asked Tom how old he was. Tom said he was 44. I was immediately disgusted. He's only 2 years younger than my husband and old enough to be Ellie's father. My husband continued to interrogate him, asking how they met and for more background. Ellie explained that they met at a party and Tom was there because he's well known around the town. They realized they had a lot in common and hit it off from there. I really didn't want to hear any more, and my husband told Tom to leave. Ellie shouted, saying how unfair this was, that we hadn't even given Tom a chance, and that he made her happy. Tom could sense the tension, so he left, and Ellie followed him. I texted Ellie to tell her we'd love to see her and to come over to discuss the situation. She asked if Tom was welcome, and I said he wasn't. Therefore, after labeling me a judgmental jerk, she told me she wasn't coming and that they would be staying at a local hotel and catching up with friends. I feel terrible about the whole situation and don't want to lose my daughter over it. My husband isn't budging and says he'd have to be held back if he ever saw that man again. Am I the jerk for saying Tom isn't welcome, or have I done the right thing? Update 1. First off, I wanted to thank everyone for their comments and messages yesterday. I was overwhelmed with the responses and didn't expect my post to gain so much attention. I know opinions were quite split, but I appreciate everyone for being honest. Please accept my apologies for not responding to anyone, but there has been a lot on my mind, so I thought it would be best to provide an update for those interested. I was incredibly down throughout most of Sunday, so I spoke to my husband and said that I really wanted to see Ellie. However, I knew that wouldn't be possible without also seeing Tom, so I mentioned to my husband about meeting Ellie and Tom at a neutral location for brunch today. I asked my husband if he wanted to join, but he said he didn't feel in the right frame of mind at this stage, so we agreed that I would go alone. I was anxious throughout the drive, but when I met Ellie, those nerves subsided relatively quickly. I was generally just happy to see her and that she was well. I still felt a bit uncomfortable around Tom, but I thought this was the opportunity to find out more about him and his intentions, as it were. We sat down, and I tried to find out as much information about Tom as possible. When I asked him to elaborate on being known around a college town and being at the same party as Ellie, Tom said he used to go to the same college when he was Ellie's age, loved the place, and decided never to leave. Throughout his time, he still frequented the main bars and places that college students do, which meant he remained in the community in some form. I found it quite an unsettling response but remained polite. In terms of other details I learned, Tom has never been married, nor does he have any children. He works as a software engineer and enjoys cooking and meditation in his spare time. Something felt off about him, but maybe I already had my preconceptions. Ellie spoke more about what a good match they were and how much they had in common. When I asked her to elaborate, she mentioned how they both loved the same spots around town and campus, with a shared love of sushi, and she's never met someone so mature and understanding. Tom also said that Ellie was perfect for him and that he was serious about their relationship. I probed if he'd had many other relationships with younger women. Ellie didn't enjoy this question, but Tom said that he generally didn't do relationships, yet something about Ellie had drawn him in. Eventually, after about 2 hours, we ended the brunch. Ellie mentioned how nice it had been and that she was so happy I had shown an interest in Tom. Then, she asked whether they could both come to dinner some evening. I told her that would be nice, but I would have to speak to her dad. Tom shook my hand, and that was that. My husband remains reluctant, but I feel it's the right thing to do if we want to maintain a relationship with Ellie. I didn't like Tom based on first impressions, and this hasn't done much to convince me otherwise. Something is just off about him, and some of his answers solidified my thoughts about him not being right for Ellie. Update 2. First off, apologies to everyone for not updating sooner and for my lack of replies. I read everyone's posts and messages, but it's so overwhelming that I struggle to know who to respond to. However, a lot has happened in the past week, and since many people asked for an update, I thought I would provide one. After I came home from brunch, I spoke to my husband about the possibility of Tom and Ellie joining us for dinner one evening. My husband was completely against it, but I told him that if we still wanted to exercise some degree of control over the situation before pushing Ellie away entirely, this was something we had to agree to. It took a lot of convincing, but my husband finally agreed, and we invited Tom and Ellie to come over this past Saturday. Before then, I ended up talking to my oldest daughter and Ellie's sister, Holly, 23F, about the situation. Holly was shocked and said Ellie had told her nothing. Holly decided to do some social media digging but struggled because Tom didn't have much of an online presence. She said she was coming to dinner on Saturday. Although I was reluctant because it seemed like it could spiral, I eventually said yes. So, we get to the dinner on Saturday, and Holly continually grills Tom. It was far worse than I did. She asked him if younger girls were his type, why someone his age is still hanging around at college parties, and other pointed remarks. Ellie told her multiple times to leave Tom alone, and I tried to act as a mediator. My husband was silently seething, and I could tell how uncomfortable he felt in Tom's presence. Eventually, Tom and Ellie said they had some big news to share. Ellie announced that she and Tom were planning to move in together for the upcoming college year. I almost spat my drink out. Ellie had told me previously that she was going to live with other friends, not that it would be Tom. When I questioned this, Tom answered that he realized that he probably won't have another long-term relationship. Ellie makes him so happy, and he doesn't want to waste any time with who I want to be my wife and the future mother of my children. At this point, my husband lost it and told Tom to get out of the house. Tom stood up, looking affronted, and Ellie started crying. I couldn't remember the last time my husband had shouted like that, and I think it surprised Ellie. Holly said it was deserved and called Tom a PDF file freak. It all ended with Ellie leaving in tears with Tom, my husband going upstairs, and me being inconsolable. I've reached out to Ellie since, but she hasn't responded. I don't want her to move in with Tom. It seems he's trying to derail her whole life. She's 20 and does not need to be married and have kids, especially with someone his age. This is her first relationship, and she appears infatuated to the extent that she's not going to listen. My husband has told me that if Ellie marries Tom, that's it, and he wouldn't want a relationship with her going forward. I can't agree with that and will always love Ellie, but this whole situation has made me incredibly sad. What am I supposed to do? Commenter. About 6 weeks after my daughter turned 18, she started dating a guy the same age as me. Did my husband and I like it? Absolutely not, but we said nothing to her, to him, or to anyone about it. And once she started inviting him to family events, we instructed everyone to keep their negative comments and opinions to themselves. My husband tried to play the long game, as one commenter suggested, though it didn't really work because that guy did not have his life together. Because really, what can we do? She's an adult. As such, I have no say over her relationships. I just needed her to know we support her and that we will always have her back if things go sideways. It took just over a year for her to realize how toxic the whole thing was, end it, and come home. I'm really afraid that Ellie isn't going to find any support when she wants to leave because her parents and sibling were so judgmental so quickly. It's going to make her dig in and possibly go no contact. And it's really not cool that her dad says he will cut contact if she keeps seeing him. Damn it, this one's going to haunt me. Commenter. On the off chance that Ellie sees this when it inevitably makes its way to TikTok, you don't have a lot in common if all you really share are the places you frequent together. If that were the case, you might as well marry the postal worker who brings your mail for the same reason. This isn't love, this is infatuation, and it will pass.